Okay, here's a demonstration of how we're going to get started with the online compiler. Now, before we begin, we're always going to be replacing the template code that exists here. Currently, this is a bit of a different style of C++ than we'll be using for this course. So the way to think about it is this line here is kind of like a toolkit. It contains all of the tools that we're going to use for programming. Now, you can use different tool sets, just like, imagine one of those big red toolboxes. You open it up and it's got, a screwdriver and a hammer, and then you open up a different one and it's got a bunch of like a ratchet set and a level or something like that. So each of these things has a little bit of a different set of tools. So what you'll more commonly find online is, instead of this style, and you're going to find something, and I'm going to remove this and paste in my own custom code template that we're going to be using. A lot of the things online have something closer to this style. And so IOStream here has all of the commands that we're largely going to need for input and output, and this namespace line just sort of formats it in a particular way. So don't really worry about that code. We're going to maybe take a look at what these header files do a little bit later, but just know that this is part of the code template. So our entire program is going to function between this curly brace and this curly brace. So we've got our main function. These curly braces are what begin and end the program, and this return 0 line is effectively the end of program line. So any code that I need to do has to be between this curly brace and this curly brace, and that's really important. The other thing that's going to be important here is that when you're using the online compiler, that you always have the programming language set. So under the language here, I'm going to click on this and select C++, so that it's going to be ready to go for C++. Okay, so writing basic lines of code here, we're going to start with some output for this program. So like most programming language tutorials, historically, sort of the culture of programming, the very first program we're going to do is the Hello World program, where we program our computer to say Hello World on the screen. So the line of command that we do for this, it starts with cout. So cout is a C language program, and it is output. So that's what cout comes from. So imagine this is like a doorway to outputting something. So what we've got to do is we've got to push something through the door so that we can see this. So what we're going to do is we're going to use these two directional brackets here. So those are angle brackets. And then we're going to display the text that we want to see on the screen. So text is always in quotation marks when it's a string of text. So we're going to type in Hello World. And then we're going to finish it with a semicolon. So now that we've got that set, what we're going to do is we're going to run the program. And on the bottom here is our output window. So this is going to display whatever the program does. So you can see that we get our Hello World here, and it says that the program has finished. So we're going to put in another line of code here just to see how it functions, and we'll put another cout here on the bottom. And we will say a greeting. How are you? There we go. And let's see what gets displayed here. So we're going to run this, and I'll pull this up. Now, this is not exactly what we would have wanted to have displayed here. So it says, Hello World, how are you? But there's no spacing between world and how are you. They're not even on different lines. So what we have to do is we have to specifically say that we want that how are you to show up on the next line. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an additional part to this Hello World. So two more angle brackets, and then we're going to put in an end L. So this is the command for end line. And then we'll put one down here as well. So these lines of command, what they're going to be doing is we're going to start with the cout. Angle brackets pushes the hello world out, and then it pushes the end L. Every single line of command pretty much in C++ is also going to end with one of these semicolons to say that we are done with the command. So let's take a look at what this does. So we're going to run the program again. And we get, hello world, how are you? Just a few more things that we can do with this is, number one, we can include more pieces of text on this line. So this is kind of a trivial case, but we'll use this for something more useful later. Imagine that I wanted to have an exclamation point. So I can put an exclamation point here, and it's going to be showing up right after the D because it's going to do them in this order. This is the first thing that's output, this is the second, and technically this is the third. So as part of the output, it is going to be going to a new line. So if I run that, it's going to say, hello world, now with an exclamation point and say, how are you? The other thing that we do pretty commonly is sometimes we need a blank line. So there's a couple different ways to do this. One is to have a line of command that is just simply cout and L. So what this line of command is going to do is it's going to just skip a line. So let's run this and see what we get. So hello world, we get a blank line, and then it says, how are you? Now, one last thing that we're going to add on here is imagine that maybe I knew ahead of time that this line of code would have two empty lines after it. What we can do is we can also put an additional end L here. Now, this is less commonly used because sometimes you want to have each line of code represent a line in the output. So by putting two end L's here, I've got to just be careful that this one is taking up two lines and everything else is taking up one single line. So if I run this, we will get hello world, two empty lines, and then the how are you afterwards. So once you're done with your program, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to save it. So you can save this. And in these programs, we're always going to have a name for this. So this is going to be the hello world program, just like that. We'll hit save. And then what we're going to do is we can also share it. So if you need to send this to somebody, you can click on the share button, and we get two things here. The first one is the share code. So typically if you're sending an email or sending this as part of like a Google form, this is what you want to send. A common mistake is to accidentally copy and paste the URL of the page, which will not allow the recipient to actually see what's on it. And the other one is the embed code. So imagine that you were designing a website and you wanted the code to actually appear in the website. You could do this. So what you'd want to do is copy this, paste it to wherever you need, and what happens is when you do that, it takes a snapshot of your code at this point. So if I wanted to add something on, like imagine that I remembered that I wanted to put, I hope you are well. Imagine that I wanted to put, I hope you are well, and then I made that change. Now the person that I shared it to, they won't see this change. So what you have to do is share it again and copy the new code, and then that will incorporate all of the changes that you just made.